Greetings and welcome. I say that at the beginning of every video, and this morning, as I was preparing, I really thought of how happy I am to be here. And so I'm going to slow my roll just a smidge and say, I greet you, greetings, and welcome. I am so happy you're here, and I am so happy to be here. Today's video is You Don't Have to Know the Way. And the sort of second phrase to that is the way knows the way. But I'm going to do a deep dive into the practice that is really being called for right now of being present and being able to envision and create and hope for yourself from a place of imagining the quality of things rather than getting super concrete about the details of a thing. So I was listening to a book this morning, and the author was reading about the eternal now. And I think ultimately, whenever I've cued people or whenever people have cued me to drop into your breath, drop into here, drop into now, that's what we're doing. We're dropping into the eternal now, the now, and then the now, right? So I'm going to put a little sound on this concept, and please join me in breath and presence. Wow, the fork sounds really thin and tinny, as if even dropping into being here, people's angst and the push right now is so high that even just dropping into breath is almost frustratingly slow. Wow, yeah. When my kids were little, they watched Kung Fu Panda a bunch of times, and I would always be in the other room preparing snacks or doing things or bustling about because they were happily watching the show. And I can hear Jack Black's voice saying, they call it a present because that's the only thing that we really have. It's the gift of right now. And I'm filming this here on a Wednesday morning per usual, and there is this sensation in the collective field that to be here now is just too blink and slow. And that's a ruse. So we're going to stick with it for just a minute. And see if by creating a pause, we can create a little more space in the space-time continuum, right? Nice. 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 Okay. So you don't have to know the way, right? The exact expression, the English words, I'm going to stop tuning for just a second and get into the contemplation part, and then we'll tune into the space we create around that. The turn of phrase that people are I keep hearing it come out of my clients' mouths. I know it's out there in the media a lot. It's like, I need to figure out. If only I need to figure out. I need to figure out. Okay. So these are mental projections and extrapolations to figure something out rather than being what is, imagining not granular detail, but imagining what quality of whatever life, presence, experience, relationship, job, what I'd like that to feel like, or what qualities I would love that to be imbued with, or imagine how I feel when I'm doing these things that I say that I want or need or I'm working towards. We get really hung up on painting a very concrete picture, trying to push towards that or rush towards that, and then either feeling exhausted, depleted, or as if we didn't make the mark, right? And then we feel bad about ourselves. Okay, so when we get too concrete, things, even when you get the thing, you're often not satisfied, or you realize, I'm not really sure if this is a match for what I wanted. And the way to avoid that cycle is to think, I'd like to feel happy and pleased and of service in my new job. So then all of a sudden, it's not a particular job, it's not a particular post, it is a quality that I can work towards and ask people about and say, I'm really looking for something where I can fulfill these qualitative aspects. And then it might be something that you would have never guessed, but it winds up being a really good fit. Whereas if you think, oh no, I want to be COO of this certain thing and whatever, well, you could get there. The work culture could be terrible. The demands could not fit with the rest of your life. And even though you got the mark, you're not happy. The other That is a very kind of 3D concrete explanation of you don't have to know the way knows the way. But if you pan back and get pretty abstracted and you think of energy molecules and concepts, right? The quantum dance of mirroring and handshaking and suggesting and vectoring of energy, the only way that you can really craft progress, if you think of like moving swaths of energy rather than making a beeline, is by being where you are, almost like a really large ocean liner, and slightly moving a rudder, and then that determines the course, rather than being towed by a specific point. And when you think of, for instance, many molecules of water starting to create and nudge the Mississippi River into a new path, or to start to meander in the slightly different direction, that also includes for all the things that you don't know, right? All the surrounding energies that have to come together with you to actually create the surround sound of all that you want, because we don't live in isolation, right? Any job that you want, other people, well, I mean, like I work alone and I work with clients, right? They have to come see me. So, right, while I own my own business, there is still a lot that surrounds me that is not me, that goes into my solopreneurship. And that's why when we create from a place of stillness and presence and dreaming, imagining into these qualities that we want, that is then how the best fit and the most sustainable solution sort of arrives to us, or we arrive into it, or maybe a little bit of both, right? Because that's how quantum things work, right? What you are seeking is seeking you. It is both, arguably in equal measure or in balanced measure. Balanced measure. Phew. Let's put some sound on that. That's a whole thing. And that can only come from the eternal now. Everybody who woke up this morning and tried to figure out what the market was going to do, there are so many variables that go into that, right? One person sitting, wringing their hands in front of the stock market undulations can't figure it out. That's not even a thing. And yet we hold ourselves to that and get really torqued around the axle. But if you have planned over time, then whatever the market is doing in the short term, you can rebound. Your holistic financial health can withstand the ups and downs and the buffets. And then you realize it's not about figuring out what the market's going to do today, right? It is more like tracking the slight variations in the Mississippi River over time. There we go. And it really helps us loosen our death grip on the illusion of control. Because when you're in the now, you can allow for what is emerging to inform you, as opposed to having a death grip on some idea, and then you might be getting in information that contraindicates your whole plan, but you're so fixated on, I have to create this thing, so I got to control the thing so I can make this thing that I said I wanted, that there gets baked into the mix this rigidity that then often leads to either a breaking of the system or that sensation of, yeah, okay, I got the thing, but it doesn't really satisfy, right? It doesn't get it like I thought it would. Because you were holding too rigidly to a detail. Yeah, that. Yeah. I've really been in a lot of conversations recently, professionally. Wow, a lot of heat is coming off the field. I've been in a lot of conversations recently about quality of leadership, and it's with people who are leaders in their jobs or in their industries. And every single one of them is well regarded in what they do. I'm thinking of two people in specific, incredibly well regarded. And both of them, in confidential and professional conversations with me, have shared how incredibly uncomfortable they are in the day-to-day of some of the decisions that they're having to make and some of the ways they're finding themselves feeling while they're having to make leadership action. And the self-awareness that these leaders are displaying is beautiful. May it continue, and may all people in leadership positions really self-regard in this way. Bravo, bravo, bravo. Thank you. And it is so interesting because for me, as a well-informed but objective professional listener to these leaders, I see that the qualities that they're describing that they report as feeling uncomfortable while they're noticing, like, I can't believe I don't want to be like that, but I was feeling pressured from this and this and this. And when so they're giving me all the surround sound, they're showing me how they're seeing themselves, and they're giving me broad strokes and some details on all of the things that they're having to consider, right? It's incredibly complex to consider one's life, one's relationships, one's business, one's home, one's health. If you really want to consider these things, it can't be an overly simplified view. You've got to look at the complexities and the nuances, right? And so they're sharing all the nuances with me. And I'm realizing they're reporting being uncomfortable, but this is what they're describing is leadership. It is standing with the complexities before speaking, before sending emails, whilst on the phone in emergency, life and death, crisis, global crisis situations. They're having to extemporaneously make decisions, and they're reporting feeling uncomfortable. But I find that what I'm reflecting back to them is that this is what leadership looks like. The old way of might makes right. Spare the rod, spoil the child, my way or the highway. Those days are over. Those concepts were never, I mean, they're, of course, yeah, you can bully, you can overpower something and get something in the short term, but that is not a synergistic, syntropic, symbiotic, sustainable relationship setup, right? Those are the only ones that evolve and morph and grow and continue over time. Things that are syntropic, that they draw the elements together. Things are synergistic, where all the elements are set up to work to do their best selves, their best fundamental process in concert with others, right? Syntropic, synergistic, symbiotic, right? If one thing is doing well, then the other thing that is near but somehow a little bit different also benefits from its neighbor doing well. These things, those adjectives, those descriptors describe the moving and confluencing of energy that is malleable and adaptable and mutatable and also powerful. And that's where we're moving. That's where, I mean, it's happening where people are thinking like that. That is going to become more and more commonplace, more and more transparent. It really is. Yeah. You don't have to know the way. The way knows the way, because syntropy and symbiosis and synergy draws from around itself, right? It's the confluence, it's the bringing together. So no one thing knows the way, right? But the way knows the way knows the way. There have been so many playbooks and so many handbooks and so many manuals made, and not a one of them works. It doesn't work every time, and none of them work for everyone, because that isn't even a thing. Sharing wisdom, sharing great ideas for those for whom it will serve so that they too can gain from what you have learned. Okay, that's, great. But God, I mean, even there is this tension. It's really tense out there, friends. Whew. I mean, even I'm noticing my hand is gripping the fork. All right, let's drop back into breath. Let's drop back into breath. You don't have to figure anything out. Figure out in the right now how the best way for you to care for you. Dream a little dream of you. Be bold enough to think of something beautiful, some quality of life, some quality of lived experience, feeling of joy, of peace, of acknowledgement, of connection, of sort of result, like, yeah, achievement. Achievement. Think of something like that. Be bold enough to think of something like that you would want for you. And kind of like you would blow a bubble in a bubble wand, right? Of bubble juice. Just inhale that quality, that thought, that felt experience. And then on the exhale, imagine blowing an iridescent bubble of potential for that. And just let it float there. Oh, really good job. And then if you think about it again after lunch, do that again. And if you think about that before bed, do that again. If you think about it tomorrow, do it again. You don't have to know the way, but by blowing these bubbles of potential into the field, more molecules will be attracted to those bubbles. And then the way knows the way. And then you just step into it. And then you realize you've gotten yourself there. This has been remarked on many times. Whenever sort of famous people are at the peak, or really when their career is just in the swing of it, and they say, how'd you go from wherever you came from to here? I feel like 9 times out of 10, 10 times out of 10, the people say, well, I can't even believe I'm here, and I wouldn't recommend the way I got here. Like, why does everybody say that? Because the way knows the way. They didn't know the way. You can't prescribe that. You can't write a playbook for that. They did it because something in them was drawing them towards them expressing themselves as an athlete or an actor or a CEO or whatever they're on this public platform doing, author, whatever it is, right? And it's always a meandering route, because that's how energy goes. That's because the way knows the way. That's because the way knows the way. Yeah. I don't really think that this is what this expression meant. Hindsight is 2020. I feel like that's sort of a cautionary turn of phrase, like almost like you can't know that something bad was going to happen until afterwards. However, if you sort of turn that around and look at it in another way, because only the way knows the way, you never, each one of us never knows the way, that it's only when you're sitting, on Oprah and she says, "How did you get here?" It's only in hindsight, it's only when you look back at the meandering avenue that you arrived on that you can even describe it, because you can't forecast that meandering avenue there. That's right. So in that way, hindsight is 2020, because it's only when we look in the rear view mirror that we would be able to see what we've done. There. Nice. 2 weeks ago, one of the concepts was resilience in mystery, right? Being able to be present in the way, showing you the way. Yeah, yeah. God, that was really interesting. I got like a flash headache there, because it's like that broke our collective brain. You mean I can't figure this out? And the brain was like, I don't know what to do with myself then. If the way knows the way, what am I doing up here spinning around in circles? Yeah. Well, thanks, brain. You're doing what you're doing your symbiotic duty, which is to think, thanks. But you're not the whole show. You're not the whole show. And we're all in this together. Yeah. Nice. Nice. Mm. And with that, I am going to wrap up today's tuning and contemplation. Things are pretty frenetic out there, friends. I mean, I'm here too. I get it. Um, you don't have to figure anything out. Just keep being, keep imagining what you'd like, how you'd like to be experiencing your life. And then from being present, move where you are drawn and move where you are led. Nice. Nice. There. Nice. All right. I hope this helped. Go to RebeccaCarner.com if you'd like to reach out, if you'd like to book a private session or get more information. Be well, hang in there. The way knows the way. Thanks.